In this lesson, we will cover section 5.1, representing functions. In this lesson, you will learn what is a set, an element, and a relation, what are independent and dependent variables, how to describe a relation in words and represent it using a set of ordered pairs, an arrow diagram, a table, and a bar graph. First of all, let's look at some new terminology. First, a set. A set is a collection of distinct objects. And a set is usually written into a notation with curly brackets. An element is one object in the set. So an element is very similar to a term of a polynomial. You're just looking at the one item that is inside our list of different distinct objects in the set. A relation associates the elements of one set with the elements of another set. So somehow they relate to one another. One will associate with the other set, and you can use that to compare one to the other. We're going to look at those in some more detail a little later. Next, we have independent and dependent variables. Independent variable is a variable whose value is not determined by the value of another variable, and whose value determines the value of another, the dependent variable. So if you want to think of this in terms of a graph or a table of values, the independent variable is usually the x values, whatever is on your first column in your table of values, or your horizontal axis on the coordinate grid. The dependent variable is a variable whose value is determined by the value of another. So it depends on the independent variable and what's going on with that. And again, if you're looking at a table of values, that will be the second column in the table of values. Or if you're looking at a graph, that would be your y-axis, the vertical axis. So a relation can be represented in a variety of ways. It can be described using words, ordered pairs, table of values, graphs, equations, or an arrow diagram. Some of these may be new to you, but they are familiar from grade 9 when we looked at linear relations. We used table of values, graphs, and equations. So let's look at ordered pairs. Just as you see here, we have an example of different types of fruit, and they're being compared or associated with their color. So apple can be red, so that will be one set, or that is one element in the set. Then we have apple and green, blueberry and blue, cherry and red, huckleberry and blue. So each one of those ordered pairs makes up an element in the set. So apple and red is an element, apple and green is an element. So once you have all of that listed out between the curly brackets, that would give us a set. So this is a set of ordered pairs, that is a relation, and the element itself is associating with the color. Next, we could have a table of values. Now this is more familiar to you. The heading of each column describes each set. So the first column there, we're talking about different types of fruit, and the second column talks about the color. The independent variable is the left column, and the dependent variable is the right. An arrow diagram is probably the newest type of way to represent a relation. There are two ovals, very similar to the table of values. The oval on the left represents the independent variable, and the oval on the right, it represents the dependent variable. The two sets together will represent a set. Each arrow associates an element of the first set with an element of the second set. So the association here is may have a color of. So the different types of fruit are being associated with their color. And in summary here, we are often asked to represent a relation in 4 or 5 different ways. And a frame model is one way to do that. As you can see, we have to represent the model in words, with ordered pairs, table of values, equations, and a graph.